What's up guys, Nathan here. Welcome to my channel. Have you guys ever been introduced to somebody but only to find moments later that you've already forgotten their name, and then throughout that conversation you're embarrassingly trying to remember it without them cluing in that you've forgotten it? Well, today I'm going to tell you the importance of people's names and show you simple steps that you can add to remember people's names. A few years ago I read a book titled How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, and it talks in depth about how you can better interact with people. And one of the points is how to remember people's names. So before I read this book, I used to be terrible at remembering people's names. In fact, when people would introduce themselves to me, I would say, sorry, I'm really bad with names and I'll probably forget it, which looking back, that's so embarrassing. It's basically telling that person that their name doesn't matter and they're not important. But then after I read this book, I found out how important people's names are. And the reason being is that that person's name means everything to them. That by remembering people's names, you will gain good favor with people. This was actually one of Franklin D. Roosevelt's key points to how he was successful, is he remembered so many people's names, right down to the staff in the White House, the cooks, the cleaners. He remembered their names, and that made them feel important. And you can too make people feel important by simply remembering people's names. Some of the tips that I'm about to share were taken directly from the book, but some of them were also tips that I learned along the way and tips that work good for me. Step number 1, when you are first introduced to somebody and they tell you their name, and maybe you didn't hear it properly, or maybe it's a unique name that you haven't heard before, or something that's difficult to pronounce or remember, you can simply ask for them to say it again. And say the second time they say it and you still didn't quite understand it because maybe it's in a loud area, or like I said, it's a unique name, one that you haven't heard before, you can even ask them to spell it out. This isn't weird. Well, it might seem a little bit weird, but it'll also show that you're interested in remembering that person's name. So once you have that down and say they've spelt it out, and it's not a unique name, it's just a name that you didn't hear properly, it's actually a very common name, then try to incorporate their name into a sentence. Like, let's take Rebecca, for instance. So if you're talking to a girl named Rebecca, and you're just introduced to them, and you say, so Rebecca, what do you like to do for fun? But don't use their name too much in the conversation because that might come across as really weird. I've had that happen to me a few times, and they said Nathan like 5 times within the first minute, and it's kind of like, ooh, that's kind of weird. But only use it a few times, but just enough so that your brain will kick in that this person's name is Rebecca. The second thing is, when you are ending the conversation or it's coming to a close, make sure you say goodbye to that person. Use their name. This will then begin to solidify their name in your mind. The moment you leave, if you have time, take out your phone and write down their name in your phone. This has helped me a lot because sometimes, even though I am getting better at remembering people's names just off the top of my head, looking back, maybe if I haven't seen them in a few weeks, I'll glance at my phone and then I'll be able to recall their name. Just simply writing their name is not enough, because if you just write down a list of people's names, you're going to go through that and it's not going to help you at all. So what I like to do is not only write down their names, but write down where I met them, what they were wearing, what they look like, and any cool things that I remember about them in the conversation. So say they like basketball. I'll say, Rebecca likes basketball. She was wearing jeans and a blue hat, or something like that, whatever it is. And I met her at this social event. This will help solidify your brain to remember that person's name and remember the scenario you met them in. So you can easily recall that when you see that person again. If you guys didn't quite catch that, that was tip number 2. Writing their name down, whether it's on your phone or on a notepad, but also writing down when you met them, where you met them, what they were wearing, and any cool things about them. My third tip is something that has helped me immensely, and that is to associate the person's name that you're talking to with somebody you already know who has the same name. And by doing this, you'll begin to form links between those two people, not just in their names, but also in commonalities. So as you're talking with that person, you'll begin to start to think about, what commonalities does that person have with my friend or person that I know? So if the person you're talking to all of a sudden brings up that they like soccer and your friend likes soccer, that's one commonality. The second commonality is maybe they're both from the same city. So you begin to form these associations, which will help you to connect the dots when you are trying to remember and secure that person's name in your mind. My fourth and final tip is to put in an effort and care and show an interest in learning that person's name. I think my issue before I read the book was I wasn't putting in any effort to try to remember people's names. They were telling me their names and I wasn't really, I was listening, but I wasn't actively listening. It was going in one ear and out the other. But after I read the book and I realized how important people's names were, I was consciously making an effort to remember their names. So if you think and decide to yourself that I'm going to remember this person's name when they tell me, it's going to be a lot easier as opposed to if they introduce them and you are consciously thinking about what you're going to say next. So those are my 4 points, guys. I hope you enjoyed them, and I hope you use them to remember people's names in the future. If you enjoyed this video and want to hear more, don't forget to like and subscribe to my videos. And if you have any questions or tips that you could tell me to remembering people's names, I'd love to hear them in the comments below. Thanks, guys.